Hey, what is up everyone, and welcome back to another episode on Concepts Explained. So in today's video we're going to take a look at authentication for APIs and how will one handle this. So we're going to be using JSON Web Tokens to protect our routes and to authorize our users. And let's dive right into it. So basically what I have here is it's a basic RESTful API. I have not put in anything in the routes yet, but let me walk through what I have here. I have a server folder, Express installed. I have connected my database. I have added the app, initiated the Express function in the app variable, and I'm listening on port 5000. Here is just my middleware to route to my routes. So the first one is /API/auth, and this will route to this auth file, and the other one obviously to the events file. So I have my model for my event. So an event will look like a title, a description, and then a date. So this is going to be a very basic API. It's just going to let a user be able to log in, generate a token, and then protected routes on the events routes will allow users to create, read, update, and delete a event. Doesn't matter what the event is, it's just to show the point of how JWT will work on an API. So that's the event model, and then the user model is just a username, an email that is unique and required, and then a password. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's see the database connection. I'll have all of this code on GitHub if you want to start from this point and follow me along. Otherwise, I'll also have the final code on GitHub. So basically that I have here, I'm using the config package to share my JSON value. So here I just have my Mongo URI for my local environment. So I'm running MongoDB locally. And the database connection is as follow. This is just a function that I export over here. This is just the normal mongoose.connect. And in my server, I import that function and I run it here. I have my app.useExpressJSON middleware, so this would just parse our body for incoming data and give us access to the request.body. So let's go and take a look at our routes. In the authentication routes, I have my login and I have my register route. I haven't done anything here yet. I have imported the config because I'll use it in a while when I sign my JSON Web Token. And I have imported the user model so I can sign in and log in a user. And then the events is just, like I said, the CRUD operation. So this will get all the events, this will create a new event, etc. And I'll import the events or just event model. So I can go to models/event. So now I have access for that right over here. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to get started with the authentication and I'm going to walk through that. I always start with register first because obviously you want to create a user first. So let's start with that. It's going to be an asynchronous function because we're going to be working with the database, which returns kind of a promise. So I'm going to use the async await syntax. So let's get started. I'm going to destructure the body and pull out the username, the email, and the password. And this will obviously be set on the request.body by the JSON middleware. And now I want to check if that user exists. So in my try catch block, I'm going to say let user equals await that user model I have dot find one, and I want to find one where the email is equal to the email I got from the body. So I want to check if this user exists. So if this user does exist, that is wrong because we are registering a person. So we don't want the user to exist in the database. So here we check if this user actually exists in this variable. We want to return res.status 400 and send a JSON error saying user already exists. So if I go past this if check, so the user is not there, then I can create a user. So I'm going to use the same variable I set to let, and I'm going to say new, and then that user model, and then I'm going to add the username, the email, and then this is the important one for registering a user, is you do not save the string password in the database. So I'm going to hash this password. So for that I'm going to need a package npm install bcrypt.js. So this will allow me to hash the password before I insert it into the database. So I'm going to import this package bcrypt, require bcrypt.js, save that, come down here, and I'm going to make a constant called hashed password, and this will return a promise. So I'm going to say await, and then that bcrypt package has a function .hash which takes in the password I got from the body and hash it with some salt. So the salt I just put in 12. That's really the higher this number, the more safe, but also the bigger and longer it takes to compare, etc. So I'm using 12, which is relatively safe. And then I use this hashed password, which this function returns, and add it to the user model. So now if I'm done adding the user model, I want to save this user. So I can say await user.save, which is a mongoose function. So once the user is saved, I now want to send back a token to the front end to tell the front end, okay, this user was successfully created and he is authorized to use our application where the routes ask for a token. So let's install the package we're going to use for this token, and that is JSON Web Token. So we're going to say npm I JSON Web Token. Wait for this to install, and this package will give us a few things that will help with this process. So first we're going to import it, JSON Web Token equals require JSON Web Token. I'm going to save that, and right below here, if I say JWT.sign, I can see that this function accepts a payload, and this payload is going to be the user we have just saved in the database. The payload is going to contain this user ID. So I'm going to set this to new user. So this will save the newly created user in this new user, and I want this payload, which I'm going to create, is an object, and I want this object to contain a user field which has the user ID, and I'm going to set that equal to this new user that we just created from the database and pull out its ID. So I'm going to say underscore ID. So if you've worked with MongoDB, you know it creates a unique ID for each entry, and that is the ID we're going to be using to reference to this specific user. So now that we have created the payload, we can pass the payload into the sign of JWT, like so. And then JWT wants a secret. So this secret is very important, that it should be very secure, because that is what the server will keep on using to ensure that the token is valid. Anytime if you go and research more about the actual workings of JWT, every time someone tampers with it or something happens, the hash won't match and then it's invalid. So it's pretty secure. So let's go into the config folder and into the default JSON file. And here we want to add a new environment variable, if you can start like a global variable, JWT underscore secret. You can name this whatever you want. I'm just giving it a usable name. So how I generate this string that we have to pass in here. So if you can see, it asks for a secret or private key. So how I generate this key usually is I go into my terminal and I type in node. I go into the node console, and here I just import the crypto package. So you can actually do it like this. We can say require crypto, and we're gonna say dot random bytes and set this equal to say 36. You can make this even longer if you want to, and dot toString, and then we use hex inside of the toString, and this will generate a random 32 byte string that is pretty random and secure in my opinion. So we can pass that in as the secret key. So you can type anything you'd like there, but it's important that each server that uses this JWT has this same secret, because this secret will be used to decrypt and decode the token. So now I can pass that in by saying config, because I've imported the config package, and I can say .get and JWT underscore secret. So now I have passed the payload and I have passed the secret. The last object that we pass in can take in a few options. So you can set a few things on the token. I'm just going to use the expires in option, and I'm going to set this equal to 1 hour. You can use milliseconds, or you can use this string type syntax to tell the JWT package how long this token should be valid. I'm going to save this in a variable called token. You can either do it with a callback function or like this. I'm going to save that, and once the token is done generated, I'm going to respond to the client with this token. 201 status, which means it's successfully updated or created, and then I'm going to respond with JSON, and I'm going to respond with that token. For the error, I'm just going to console.log any errors that was catched, and then I'm going to respond with a status code. So if an error comes into this catch block of this try catch, it means something went wrong on the server, so it's a code of 500. And I'm going to respond with a JSON with a message error saying server error. So with this out of the way, let's quickly test this out on the register route. So I'm going to quit out of this node, and I'm going to npm run dev. I'm using nodemon, and I just created a dev script. And once we are connected, I just navigate it into the right file, and then once we are connected, we can see everything is working. So everything is saved. Let's just save this JSON. Okay, so let's go to Postman, create a new instance. We say localhost 5000 /API/auth/register. And this will be a post, because if we go to our code, we can see that in the route it is a post, and a post to /register. And now in our header we have to set the content type to application JSON, because we're sending JSON data, and application JSON right over there. And then our body is raw, and it will automatically be set to JSON. So I would like a username. Well, that's what I'm checking for, and I'm just going to call this Jeff. The email, jeff@gmail.com, and then some password. And it's important that these key value pairs, or these keys, align with what you are extracting from the body in your code. So you can say here password, and then hopefully if we send, this should work. User already exists. Okay, so there's already something in my database. Let me quickly drop that. So I'm going to say show DBs use REST JWT, and then I'm going to say db drop. I think this should work, or db drop database, like this. Database. Okay, now if I resend this, I should get a token. So in this token, if we go to JSON Web Token, the actual site jasonwebtoken.io, if we copy that token and paste it inside of this encoded field, we can see what is saved in this token. So we saved the user ID in this token, because the user ID can be used for a lot of things to reference during application. So now that we can see how the saving of the JWT works, let's go to the login and work on that part. So the login is fairly similar. We can extract from our body, request.body, and all we want to extract from this body is an email and a password. So we can say email, password. And here as well, we are using try catch because it's asynchronous, and we're going to do a few things in here. We're going to create a user variable and check if this user exists. So we're going to, on our user model, say user.find1 on this email that was received from the body. So we're going to say if this user does not exist. So we're checking if this user is not truthy. So if there's nothing in there or it's undefined, then that means the user first has to register before it can log in. So we're going to return with a status of 400, JSON with an error message saying invalid credentials, like this. If we make it pass this if check, we're going to now want to check if the password that was created matches the password that was entered. So we're going to say const isMatch. I like calling this variable isMatch because it just makes it clear what it does. It's going to be a wait because we're going to work with the bcrypt package again. And here we can say .compare, which is also a function built into the bcrypt package. And we pass it in the password we found from the body, and then the password that's in this user that was found in the database, so the hashed password. So we can say user.password, which is the field on the user model. It's this field, it's referencing to this field. So now we can compare, and it will save true or false in this match is match. So now we can check if this is not a match, then we know it's invalid credentials. So you can say return res.status 400, same as the one above, and .json with an error message saying invalid credentials. Okay, so if we make it past this if block, we have officially authenticated our user and all is good. So now we create the exact same payload that we had over here. So we can say payload equals a user and ID. I like to call it underscore ID because MongoDB also saves it as underscore ID, so I don't get confused. So now I am using this user we found in the beginning and placing its underscore ID inside of the payload token, or the payload of the token. So now I can once again say const token equals, don't have to call await, I can just say JWT.sign and pass it this payload, and then the config.get, and then I pass it that JWT underscore secret variable, and then the expires in option, which I set to 1 hour. Once that is done, the token will be saved in the token variable, and I want to respond with a status code of 200 to the client with a JSON message containing the token. And if any of this had to fail, I want to console.log, the same as down below. You can create a better error handling mechanism, but this is not part of the video. And a status code of 500 with a JSON error message saying server error. Okay, so once this is done, our register should be complete. We look for the data in the body. We search for the email. If the email is not found, return with an error. Compare the password. If the password does not match, we return with an error. If all good, we create the payload containing the user ID, and then we create the token by adding the payload and signing it with the secret, and the expires in 1 hour. And then we send this back to the server. So let's check if this works. I'm going to save everything. I'm going to clear the terminal, restart my server, then go back to Postman and go to /login. And here I should just send the email and the password. So we know this user already exists. So let's send, and bam, we got a token back. So if I were to send something that does not exist, so I type the incorrect password, it should say invalid credentials, okay? And if I type the right password and a wrong email and send, I get invalid credentials. So it doesn't tell you which one is wrong, which is better for brute force attempts, but yeah, so it does the checking for that. So now that we've done registering and logging of a user and creating of the token and sending of the token, how do we handle protecting routes? So let's get started with that part now. So we're going to go to the events routes, and here we have to create a piece of middleware, because now we want to send this JSON web token with every request to a protected route. So every request that is sent to a route that is protected should contain this token. And this piece of middleware will check to see if this token is there, if it's actually in the header, and check if there is a token, is the token valid? So let's create that piece of middleware. I'm going to create a folder called middleware. And in this folder, I'm going to make a is-auth.js file. So I'm just going to make a function, a direct export of the function. And this middleware always has a request, response, and next. And if you don't know how middleware works, I have a video on this topic, so go check it out. So basically, we want to check for the token in the header. So I'm going to say auth header equals request dot header, and then whatever key we saved the token to. So this would be authorization. I think I spelled that correctly. Let's go to Postman and check. So if I go to headers and I type in auth, I can see authorization, and that is the header we're going to save it to. So okay, so we are going to pull the authorization header, and on that key we'll receive the token. And this is where we'll check if this auth header is empty. So if it is not true, we want to return with res.status of 401, which means unauthorized, and a JSON message. I'm just going to make this an error as well and say unauthorized access denied, something like that. Unauthorized access denied. That sounds badass. Okay, so once we've completed this part and we go past this if check, we know that the token exists in the header. So now we want to check if the token is valid. So for that, we're going to have to import the JSON web token package again. So we can say JSON web token, and below this if check, we're going to say const decoded. Okay, for this we're going to need a try catch block because there is a possibility that it would fail. So we're going to say const decoded token equals JWT.verify. So this verify will take the token which we got from the header and we set it in auth header, and it will match it with the secret. So we're going to say config.get JWT underscore secret. And by doing this, we have to import this package as well. So we can say config equals require. Okay, once that is complete, we get the token from the header and we compare it or verify it. And this also decodes the token if it is valid. And this secret will be used to verify if the token and the hash matches. It's a kind of a process that I'm not going to go into. If you want to know more how this process works, you can go on JWT.io and it explains over there. So if this is done, we can call the next for the middleware. But before that, we want to set some data on the request object for that specific route using this middleware. So we can say on the request.user ID, we want to save this decoded token. If you remember the payload of this token, it is user and then dot underscore ID. So this will place this decoded token user underscore ID inside of the user ID for the next route that uses this middleware. And if there is an error, we just return rest of status 401 for unauthorized, and we're going to say the exact same thing as above, access denied. So with this done, our middleware is complete. So now we can just pass this piece of middleware into the routes that need it. So let's go do that. In the events file, we are going to import this piece of middleware as isAuth and require from the middleware folder the isAuth file. And now we place this piece of middleware in between the routes that should be authorized. So we can pass it in like this, just as a router level middleware, and save. So now all of these routes should have a token in its header before you have access, and the token should be valid. So with that done, let's go check out if this works. So I'm just gonna send something here, res.send. This worked, and save. Okay, so let's run the server. I'm not sure if it's running. Okay, restart the server. Go to Postman. Let's get a login token. So let's remove this. And then go to the body. This is valid. So let's send. This is not valid. So let's send the new valid one. We get our token. Copy this and then create a new instance, http localhost 5000 /API/events, and then just the slash. And if you were to send this request just like this without any token in the header, it should say unauthorized access. Unauthorized access denied. Okay, great. So that works. So the piece of middleware works. And now we're going to send this token with the header specified as authorization. So if I send this, it should say this works. Yay! Okay, so this is awesome. We have just protected the route. And the other neat thing, we can check if I were to return the request.userID object that was created in this piece of middleware, I now have access in this route to the user ID. And this could be useful in many situations. So let's try that out. It should log out the user ID. And bam, we have the user ID. So if we were to compare that to the user Jeff in the database, that would match. So this is awesome. So now that we have completed this, let's just complete the API and then we're all done. So this is basically how the JSON Web Token works, in the sense that when we authorize a user, we do the authentication by just checking, is the email and password that was sent valid, and does that match to something in the database? And once that authentication is done, we create the token that would authorize this user that has the token and send the token through the headers to specific routes. So that's the main idea of JSON Web Tokens. So let's just finish this by adding a few things to the events. So if I go to the get route, I want to get all of the events. So I'm going to say const events equals await. So I'm going to make this an asynchronous function. Await event dot find with no parameters, because I want to find everything. And now I just want to return that. So this actually has to be in a try catch block for in case something goes wrong. And just move this up in here. If you don't know how I did that, I just kept in Alt and up arrow key so I can move things around like this. I'm going to save that. Once I get everything, I want to return with a status code of 200 and a JSON with the events. Okay, and if something went wrong, I want to console.log this error. This is going to be the same for all of them, so you can outsource this into a function, but I'm just going to keep it competitive to make a point. And then error, it should be server error. like this. So that is the get route completed. So if I were to save this and I go to the post route, which is the kind of important one here, this is also going to be an asynchronous function. So the function is basically this part. It's the controller of the route. It's the route ending function. So the middleware should always come before that. So now if we go look at how a, close this all up, an event looks like, we have a title, a description, and a date. So from the body, I'm going to accept a title, a description, and some date. I called it date, right? Yes. And some date. And I'm going to get this from the request.body object. So once I've done getting these, I am going to create an event model. So now I'm going to use the try catch once again. I'm going to say const event equals new event, and pass this the title, the description, and the date. Once this is done, I want to save this to the database, so I can say event const new event equals the weight, the event variable up there, and dot save. Once this is done, I run a return with a status of 201 for successfully created and updated, and I want to return the event with this new event like so. And if anything were to fail, it's the exact same thing. Okay, now we have gotten a route to get all of the events, a route to create an event, and now for the update and delete. So here we receive an ID from the request.param, so I can say const event ID is equal to the request.params.id. This variable name here should match up with the name you gave it up there. So with that done, this is also going to be an asynchronous function. With that done, we want to do a try catch. When we update something, we want to check the body, and we do that as follow as well. So we get the title, the possible title, the description, and then the date. So you don't have to pass in these variables, but we are just checking for them by doing the following. So we can say const updated event and set this equal to an empty object. And now we do our checkings to see if there was actually values inside of the body. So we can say if title, then I want to set this updated event dot title to the title we found from the body. And we do this for the description. Copy this through. So we check if the description is not empty, we want to add it because that means it was updated. And then we want to check the date, and let's do the exact same here. And save. So now we have the updated event in this object, and when we save, we do it as follow. Call a mongoose function on the event model and say find by ID and update, and we pass it the event ID we extracted from, just spelled this incorrectly, the event ID in here, and then it takes in a few things. The first one is $set, and now I can set the new value equal to whatever is in the updated event object. And then the last object options it takes in is a new value, and set this equals to true. So this means in this update running, we want to return event. So the event that is going to be returned over here is going to be the updated one. This is what this new equals to true means. Okay, so once that is done, we want to return with a status code of 201 for successfully updated. And then we pass in the event like so. If there's an error, same thing. Okay, so we have completed the update. Let's just check. We check for the param, we check for the body, we fill in the updated version, and then we create a variable with the new updated event, and then we pass it back in. And if something went wrong, we do that. Okay, so onto the delete, the final steps. Okay, so basically this is going to be very similar to the update. Const event ID equals request.params.id, and here we just want to try catch, and we can say await event dot find by ID and remove, and then we pass in the event dot ID like so. So this is basically all, and then we can just respond with the status code of 200. I think there is one for specifically deleting, but I'm just going to respond like this with a message saying event removed, and save console.log this right here. I'll check that error out now. There's that status. And save. So what is our error? Oh wait, so this should be an asynchronous function, and everything should work fine now. So with this all done, our API is complete. I know it's not much, but the main point was just this middleware and how the JSON Web Token would work. So if I were to go back to Postman and try out these routes, so I'm going to create a new post. I'm going to make a post route to API/events. I'm going to go to the authorization. I have the current token. This should still be active. In the raw, just going to make this JSON. So this setting this to JSON is the equivalent of saying content type right over here. But it's always good practice to put in content type here, because when you work on the front end and you make your asynchronous requests, your AJAX requests, you have to set this in the header, unless you're using Axios, which does it automatically. But let's continue. Like this. Title 1, not very creative. The script, and this is and then the date. I'm just going to use today's date, which is 2020 / the 8th of the 6th, and I'm going to send this. It should return with the actual created new entry, and boom, we have the new entry. It's ID, title, description, the date, and then the created at and updated, because in the model I enabled timestamps. So now I want to edit this one, so I'm going to say copy. I'm going to paste that in right at the back, and I'm going to make it a put request, and I want to change this to updated, and go here and do the exact same thing. Just say updated like this, and send. It returns the new one, updated, and it is changed in the database. So this is all working. So let's delete it quickly. Let's quickly try out the get route first before we delete it. I'm just going to save that. Go to get, so it should have an array of only one value. So it's an array of only this one event. So it says events and then this one. Now I want to delete this event, so I can go to delete and delete it. It should say event was removed. If I go back to events and just do a get request, there should be nothing in the array. So this is awesome. This all worked, and I hope you found this video helpful. And as I said before, the code will be linked in the pinned comment below with the GitHub repo for the starting and the end files. So thank you for joining me in this video. Sorry for it being a bit too long, but I'm trying to make sure I cover everything when it comes to these type of topics. But if you found this video helpful, please remember to like and subscribe and leave a comment down below, and I'll see you in the next one.